Welcome to our meditation class. We're in a series called Buddhist Answers to Life's Deepest Questions. So you may be wondering, what's going on here? Where's the shrine? Where's Geshe-la's usual picture? Anyway, our internet has been so horrible upstairs because we have to use wireless that we have moved down to the office to where we can have a direct internet connection. And we're in the process of arranging for a direct internet connection upstairs. So eventually we will be back in the temple. But for now, this should create a clear recording so that you don't have to listen to all those clicks that have been in our recording, which have come from the instability of our internet. Okay, so let's meditate before we begin our class. Our class is why is there suffering in the world? And it's a very important question. People have been pondering that question for a very long time. But let's meditate to bring mental peace into our heart. So find a comfortable position. Try to be in an environment where you don't have too many distractions. And if you do, just become comfortable with the fact that there will be some distractions wherever you are. We're going to meditate on the breath, the feeling that our breath is making just inside the tip of our nose as we breathe completely normal and naturally. So this is very important meditation object, even though it's a preparatory object for meditation, because we can train our mind to meditate using this object of meditation, and it brings mental peace into our mind. So we want to follow the steps of meditation, which is what makes Buddhist meditation different from other types of meditation, because we want to learn how to concentrate on beneficial objects that lead us to greater peace and happiness. And to do that, we have to train our mind to seek and find a qualified object of meditation, in this case, the feeling our breath is making just inside the tip of our nose as we breathe normally. And then we hold it in the center of our attention in a relaxed way, but in a definite way. We stay focused on this. We remain for as long as possible. So if our mind wanders to some distraction, another thought or sensation, the moment we notice, we release our attention from that thought or sensation and go back and repeat the steps of seeking and finding the feeling that our breath is making, and then holding it again in the center of our attention. Relax and remain focused on it again for as long as possible. It doesn't matter how many times we have to repeat these steps. Each time is a practice session, and we are training our mind to meditate. And we're creating the causes to experience mental peace from meditation, both now and in the future. If you can remain on your object for a reasonable period of time, you will begin to feel immersed in the feeling of your breath, and other thoughts and sensations will seem to go to the background of your mind, and they will slow down, and you'll begin to experience mental peace right within this meditation. So how wonderful that we have this opportunity. So find a comfortable position with your back straight. That's a very important part of meditating. And your feet firmly planted on the ground, or if you're on a cushion, have your hips higher in the back than in the front, and any comfortable cross-legged position will do. If you can get into what's known as half vajra with one foot on the opposite thigh, that's a very stable meditation posture, but only if it's comfortable, because we don't want to be distracted by pain when we're meditating. to the best of our ability. You may want to put your hands in the traditional meditation posture of right hand on left, with thumbs touching close to your abdomen, and have your head well balanced over your straight back, looking down just a little bit, with your eyes comfortably looking down the bridge of your nose and either being lightly closed, or if your eyelids are incredibly stable, a little bit open, letting some light in so you stay more alert in meditation. And it's very useful to place your tongue resting against the back of your upper teeth to keep your mouth moist during meditation. So having assumed that posture, just make any little adjustments you need to make to allow yourself to become more comfortable. Our next step is to create a mental intention. An intention that through learning how to meditate and bring mental peace into our mind, we can benefit others throughout our day by bringing harmony into our relationships. And in order to do this, we need to follow the steps of meditation: seeking, finding, holding, and remaining. Holding this intention, using your imagination, try to place your awareness at your heart center, which is in the center of your body at the level of your heart. It's the location of your root mind, so it's very easy to observe your thoughts from this location. And from among the many thoughts and sensations that are appearing to your mind, seek and find the feeling that your breath is making just inside the tip of your nose as you breathe completely normally and naturally. It's a little bit cooler as you breathe in and a little bit warmer as you breathe out. But that sensation is always there because we're always breathing. When you find it, focus on it in a relaxed way, but definitely remain focused on it for as long as possible. Pause for a few moments to enjoy any greater mental peace that you've created within your mind, and rejoice. Any degree of mental peace is an indication of your completely pure nature. And that mental peace can connect us with holy beings. If you wish, you can open your heart to receive powerful blessings, imaginary lights, and nectars that will flow into your mind, increasing your mental peace. As you gently come out of meditation, try in a relaxed way to sustain any greater mental peace that you created within your mind. So our topic is a rather heavy one, but in a way, we can learn how to be lighthearted about it. Seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? Why is there suffering and evil in the world? So first we have to understand what is the immediate cause of suffering in our mind. And I'm teaching from 2 books for this class, How to Transform Your Mind and Modern Buddhism, the first volume on Sutra. And as most of you know, these books have been kindly given to us by our lineage holder, who is in the picture over here, Venerable Geshe Kelsang Gyatso Rinpoche, a fully realized Mahayana meditation master in this modern world. It's like a miracle. But he demonstrates the results of all of Buddha's teachings, and then has been able to teach us how we can do the same. So in How to Transform Your Life, he says, since we all have within us our own source of peace and happiness, so that's the completely pure potential I was talking about in the meditation, we may wonder why it is so hard to maintain a continually peaceful and joyful mind. So maybe you've thought about that a lot, because although we can experience temporary happiness, there's so many things that erode our happiness, and it's very difficult to remain happy for any period of time, because our mind tends to be so unbalanced. He gives us an answer. This is because of the delusions that so often crowd our mind. So now we have to understand what delusions are, because they cause our mind to be unpeaceful and uncontrolled. And they cause us to harm ourselves and to harm others and create our future harm. He continues, delusions are distorted ways of looking at ourselves, other people, and the world around us. Like a distorted mirror, they reflect a distorted world. So maybe you've been in some type of fun house where you've seen the mirrors that change your body image when you look at them. You know, some make you very tall and thin. almost wraith-like, and others make you look incredibly rotund and short. The deluded mind of hatred, for example, views other people as intrinsically bad. But there is no such thing as an intrinsically bad person. Sometimes we think that's hard to believe because we see someone who's being quite evil in the world. But if we really pay attention, that person has friends, they have supporters, they have people who like them, they have family. So this is an indication that our attitude of hatred is coming from our own mind, according to what we're paying attention to, what we're discriminating about that person. So he's going to look at another delusion, uncontrolled desire, also known as desirous attachment. On the other hand, sees its object of desire as intrinsically good and as a true source of happiness. He's going to give us an example. If we have a strong craving to eat chocolate, so maybe you have a strong craving to eat chocolate, many people do, but if you don't, you can pick pizza or whatever you have a strong craving for to make this example live in your heart. So if we have a strong craving to eat chocolate, chocolate appears to be intrinsically desirable. However, so it's like we imagine all the good qualities of chocolate and we exaggerate them in our mind. And pretty soon we feel, I just have to have some chocolate. And then if we don't have any in the house, that seems like a bit of a crisis. And so we may have to go out and get some chocolate or realize that we have to order it online because we're out of chocolate. However, here's the kicker. Once we have eaten too much of chocolate and start to feel sick, so we've all had that experience too, it no longer seems so desirable and may even appear repulsive to us now. So it's the same chocolate, but not the chocolate we were imagining. Now we're having a different imagination about chocolate. We may feel a bit nauseated, and the thought of chocolate then seems quite repulsive to us because it increases our nausea, for example. This shows that in itself, chocolate is neither desirable nor repulsive. It is the deluded mind of attachment that projects all kinds of pleasurable qualities onto its object of desire, and then relates to them as if they really did possess those qualities. So we're fooling ourselves all the time when our delusions are operating. All delusions function like this, projecting onto the world their own distorted version of reality, and then relating to this projection as if it were true. When our mind is under the influence of delusions, we are out of touch with reality and are not seeing things as they really are. So that's why we're using the English word delusion to describe this painful experience within our mind. Since our mind is under the control of at least subtle forms of delusions all the time, it is not surprising that our lives are so often filled with frustration. So you can check that out in your own experience. How often are you impatient, unhappy, irritated, frustrated, and so forth? It is as if we are continually chasing mirages, only to be disappointed when they do not give us the satisfaction for which we had hoped. So that's the story of my life Maybe it's the story of your life as well, until I met these teachings. How wonderful. So we should understand that although delusions are deeply ingrained in our mind, they are not an intrinsic part of our mind. And so they can definitely be removed. That's an important point to remember. They can definitely be removed. Delusions are just bad mental habits. And like all habits, they can be broken. At the moment, our mind is like muddy water, murky and polluted by delusions. However, just as it is possible to separate mud from water, so it is possible to purify the mind of all delusions. With no delusions remaining in our mind, there is nothing that can disturb our inner peace and joy. So that's what we all long for, is this ability to have nothing disturb our inner peace and joy. Okay. So now we have to understand what causes delusions. Okay. And why does it matter what we do in this life? And the answer is very simple. It's because we reap what we sow. Okay. So in modern Buddhism, Venerable Geshe Kelsang teaches us the purpose of understanding and believing in karma is to prevent future suffering and to establish the basic foundation for the path to liberation and enlightenment. So we don't need to feel like we have to attain to take the law of karma seriously. Generally, karma means action. So that's a Sanskrit word for action. From non-virtuous or harmful actions comes suffering. And from virtuous actions or beneficial actions comes happiness. If we believe this, we believe in karma. So harmful actions towards whom? Or beneficial actions towards whom? It's always towards living beings. It can be animals, it can be people, it can be unseen beings. But an action towards an inanimate object does not create karma. So for example, I can go like that on the table here. And I'm a living being, so I hurt my hand a little bit when I did that. But the table is inanimate. It doesn't respond. It doesn't feel pain. And so I didn't create any negative karma in doing that. Although I created a little bit of negative karma in hurting my hand a little bit because I'm a living being. Okay. Buddha gave extensive teachings that prove the truth of the law of karma and many different examples that show the special connections between the actions of our former lives and our experiences of this life, some of which are explained in Joyful Path of Good Fortune. So there's a very extensive section on karma in Joyful Path of Good Fortune. We're going to be studying that in our foundation program. And if you have some interest in studying more systematically, Joyful Path of Good Fortune is a wonderful book to study. And you can contact Shelley or myself and be able to join the class. Okay. He goes on to say, in our previous lives, we performed various kinds of harmful or non-virtuous actions that caused others suffering. As a result of these non-virtuous actions, various kinds of miserable situations and conditions arise, and we experience endless human problems and suffering. So you can think about this in terms of your own life. Have you experienced endless suffering and problems? I think our entire life is a series of problems and suffering, with a little bit of temporary happiness in between. But almost every day, some glitch occurs, and usually more than one glitch occurs. And of course, right now we're in the pandemic of coronavirus. And as we can see, the virus is increasing exponentially in our country again because of cold weather. People are indoors and not social distancing. So we can see lots of miserable conditions that arise in our life. We also have the miserable condition of social injustice. We have the miserable condition of many people have been laid off and lost their jobs, and so have tremendous financial hardship. And there's so many miserable conditions in our life. This is the same for all other living beings. So we can see the miserable conditions of animals as well as the miserable conditions of humans. We should judge whether or not we believe that the main cause of suffering is our own harmful or non-virtuous actions. And the main cause of happiness is our own beneficial or virtuous actions. We really need to think about this deeply and contemplate it. If we do not believe this, we will never apply effort to accumulating beneficial or virtuous actions or merit. There is positivity in our mind, positive karma in our mind, and we will never purify our non-virtuous or harmful actions. And because of this, we will experience difficulties and suffering continually in life after life without end. So it's not just this life. We understand on a basic level that we reap what we sow in this life. But what we don't realize is that all of our experiences that we're having now were created by actions that we performed, particularly based on our mental intentions, because mental karma is the 100 times more powerful than our actions of speech or doing. So every action that we do of speaking or doing starts with a mental intention. We do what we wish to do. So we have to really think through, do we believe in the law of karma? And do we think that our experiences are coming predominantly from our actions in our past lives? And are we realizing that the actions we perform in this life is creating our conditions for our future lives? And that we have this amazing opportunity to purify the negativity in our mind following the instructions that Buddha gives us, so that we don't have to experience the suffering that we've created in past lives and earlier in this life. So belief in karma really sets the stage for our being able to create better and better conditions for ourselves in this life and in our future lives. So it's very practical. Every action we perform leaves an imprint on our very subtle mind. And each imprint eventually gives rise to its own effect. So the results of our actions, or the karmic potentialities, are stored in our very subtle mind, or our root mind that goes from life to life. It's the only thing we take with us when we die. And Buddha said that if potentialities would take form, which they're formless, our negative potentialities would fill a universe. So that's why it's so important to take the teachings on karma to heart and to create a strong intention to purify the negativity in our mind. It's like having landmines waiting to explode, and we never know when some form of suffering is going to occur in our life or in our future lives. So our mind is like a field, and performing actions is like sowing seeds in that field. Virtuous actions sow seeds of future happiness, and non-virtuous actions sow seeds of future suffering. These seeds remain dormant in our mind until the conditions for them to ripen occur, and then they produce their effect. In some cases, this can happen many lifetimes after the original action was performed. So we understand that everything is changing in a moment-by-moment chain of cause and effect. Every impermanent thing is changing, like we are changing, our mind is changing, our body is changing. And we know this from modern science. Buddha was teaching momentary impermanence 2,600 years ago, but we know that there are countless biochemical reactions going on in our body, moment by moment, producing a chain of cause and effect, which keeps us alive at the moment. So, and this is true for everything. Everything is changing moment by moment according to a cause becomes an effect, and then that effect becomes the cause for the next effect, and that effect becomes the cause for the next effect, and so on in this endless chain of change of cause and effect. But what we don't realize is that there is an immediate chain of cause and effect, but there's also a delayed chain of cause and effect. So when we have a mental intention and we perform a beneficial action, there may be some immediate effect. Maybe even the effect doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out because we didn't have enough positive karma and enough skill for a beneficial intention to produce an action that was beneficial for another living being. So maybe you've given some beneficial advice to someone and they just blow it off. You know, they're not interested in your advice, even though what you're saying is completely true and would be very helpful for them. In that situation, you've still created a lot of positive karma, and you've created the cause for potentialities to be stored in your mind that later, sometime later, when you yourself are in need of advice, someone will give you some beneficial advice. And hopefully you don't have karma in your mental continuum to ignore that advice. But it could be very helpful for you at that point in time. That could happen later in this life. It could happen in future lives. Karmic potentialities produce their effect when causes and conditions come together for that particular potentiality to produce its effect. However, even if one cause isn't created, that potentiality cannot produce its effect. So every cause and condition has to be in place for that potentiality to produce its effect. If we understand this, we have a lot of ability to change our mind and thus change our experiences. This is very important because not only can we stop harming and start benefiting others, but we can also purify our minds so that following the instructions that Buddha gives us, the negative karma in our mental continuum cannot produce painful effects. And also, we can keep our mind beneficial towards others. And when our mind is beneficial towards others, it's very hard for negative karma to produce suffering effects. Although sometimes, of course, that happens because not only do we have beneficial intentions, but sometimes we have intentions that are harmful. But there's a lot that we can do to change our experiences in this life, and of course, for our future lives, if we understand the law of karma. So he defines a whole group of non-virtuous actions for us that we should avoid. All inappropriate actions, including killing, and that means any living being, not just humans, stealing, sexual misconduct. So that doesn't mean anything that two consenting adults want to do with each other. That's their private business, but it means the obvious sexual misconduct, such as someone who doesn't want to be in a sexual relationship, forcing someone, or stealing someone's partner, or getting involved with an animal or child, and so forth. Lying, divisive speech, where we set one person against the other, hurtful speech, where we zing someone, idle chatter, where we just waste time, or maybe we just talk nonstop and disturb other people's peace of mind where they can't get a word in edgewise. Or maybe we're just playing video games for hours on end, and so forth. Covetousness, or it's where we really want something that someone else has and we're scheming in our mind how we can take it away. Whether we do it or not, we're still creating negative karma by the train of thoughts. Malice, that's the same way, that we're having a train of thought about how we want to harm someone. Whether we put it into action or not, it's still creating negative karma. And holding wrong views, which is wrong views that deny Buddhist teachings and deny the law of karma, deny ultimate truth, the way things really are, and so forth, and where we sort of dig our heels in and we're absolutely certain that these things are wrong, and we don't even want to keep an open mind. So wrong views requires that sense of completely closing our mind to hearing new information. All of these are non-virtuous actions. So why do we perform non-virtuous actions? Venerable Geshe Kelsang answers this as well. Due to the imprints of self-grasping, this is in How to Transform Your Life. Due to the imprints of self-grasping accumulated since beginningless time, whatever appears to our mind, including our I, appears to be inherently existent. In other words, it appears to be external to our mind. I'm here, you're there, and I have nothing, my mind has nothing to do with you. Grasping at our own self as inherently existent. So that's where we feel like we're solid, real, somehow the owner of our body and our mind. We grasp at the self as others as inherently existent. And then we conceive self and others to be inherently different. We then generate self-cherishing, which instinctively feels, I am supremely important and precious. In other words, my happiness is more important than your happiness. My suffering is more important than your suffering. Why? Well, because it's mine. And we feel that way towards ourself and towards our family and friends. So we feel like we own in a certain sense. And so we have our little circle where we feel everything that happens to that little circle is incredibly important. For ordinary beings like us, self-grasping and self-cherishing are very closely related and almost mixed together. Okay, that's very important. So any action that gets motivated by these minds keeps us trapped in the cycle of impure life. So they are the root of our suffering in the cycle of impure life. We can ask another question, which is, why do bad things happen to good people? So maybe you've known someone who was just such a lovely, kind, beneficial person who really contributed a lot to your lives and to others' lives, and then they got struck with cancer, or they were in an automobile accident, or someone shot them, or all sorts of things can happen of terrible suffering. And then we ask ourselves, why do bad things happen to good people? So here's the answer. Because we carry the potentialities or karma of the actions that we performed from previous lives, when causes and conditions come together, a karmic potentiality can produce suffering, no matter how good the person is in this life. So it's not anything they did in this life. It actually comes from potentialities that have been stored from past lives, where maybe that we haven't been that good, for example, where we've harmed, trying to get resources for ourselves, resources for our family, and so forth. Might have even been an animal. Animals have to harm a great deal in order to stay alive, for example. Also, it is inevitable that good people as well as bad people will suffer, since all of us are trapped in the cycle of impure life, and we're all experiencing the sufferings of aging, sickness, death, and uncontrolled rebirth. And none of us can escape this suffering. It's just a matter of time. We should use this understanding to motivate ourselves to find a method to recognize, reduce, and eventually abandon this suffering. We call that a strong wish for liberation, or the mind of renunciation. So the mind of renunciation is a very joyful mind. It has nothing to do with abandoning our modern daily life, our family, our friends, or our resources, and so forth. It really is just simply a strong wish for permanent liberation from suffering. And we have teachings that can help us to move towards realizing that strong wish. And they're all based on the law of karma. We can ask ourselves, why do good things happen to bad people, for example? That's just the opposite question of why bad things happen to good people. Well, good things happen to bad people because they've got karmic potentialities in their mental continuum from their past lives where they actually benefited others. Where they, for example, someone may be very rich, but also be harming. So the fact that they're very rich comes from the karma that they produced in past lives through generosity. But in this life, if, for example, the money they're making is on the back of not paying suitable wages to employees, then they're creating the causes for future lives to be born in poverty and to have to be struggling themselves of not receiving appropriate wages. So no one escapes the law of karma. Sometimes people think, oh, I got away with something, because they weren't caught when they stole something, or when they stole a partner or something like that. But in fact, they didn't get away with it because they created the karma, negative karma in their mental continuum, which will produce a suffering result later in this life or in future lives. So No one escapes the law of karma, whether they believe in it or not. And all of our actions begin with mental intentions, and all of those mental intentions and the actions we perform create karmic potentialities. So everything we're experiencing is occurring because of the ripening of numerous karmic potentialities, instant by instant by instant. I mean, understanding the law of karma is why Buddhists maintain compassion for all living beings, even those that are performing terrible actions, because we understand that they're creating the causes for their own future suffering. And they don't even realize it. You know, they think they're getting away with it. They're just self-focused in this life, not realizing the consequences of their actions later in this life or in future lives, but particularly in future lives. So a vast practice for all of us to give ourselves protection for this life and in our future lives is to follow what the Okkadampa said, which is to harm our delusions as much as possible. So our delusions arise because of the ripening of negative karma, but we have choice. We can see our mind getting unhappy in some way, irritated, annoyed, anxious, any depressed, any form of unhappiness. And we could say to ourselves, I don't want delusions in my mind. I'm going to oppose this delusions, applying Buddhist teachings. So if I start to feel jealous, I'm going to start rejoicing because I actually want to have whatever that other person has, and rejoicing for them having it is the best way to get it myself. And it keeps my mind happy, and I'm avoiding harming. It's the same thing. If we find ourselves starting to get annoyed, we can say, I don't want anger in my mind. Anger is a harmful delusion. It will create a cause for me to harm, and then I'll create suffering for someone else, and I will create suffering for myself, both now and in the future, because we get this immediate cause and effect. We all know if we start an argument, usually the other person on the other side of the argument answers back, and then the argument escalates. And so now, where one person was unhappy, now both people are unhappy, and they're increasing their unhappiness through having a fight. So that's immediate cause and effect. But what we don't realize a lot of the time is we're creating the causes, again, to be the focus of other people's anger and other people's arguments. And worst of all, we're creating the habit of arguing. So we have karmic tendencies that we carry from life to life. And we can shape those karmic tendencies now in this life by addressing our habits that cause us to harm ourselves and harm others, by choosing to work on recognizing, reducing, and eventually abandoning them. So this is very important that we understand that understanding the law of karma gives us power to change our mind. So the other part of their advice, besides harm your delusions as much as possible, is to benefit others as much as possible. So that creates a vast amount of positivity in our mind through which we can fulfill our wishes and produce conditions for greater and greater peace and happiness. So I'd love simple advice because I think it's something we can put in our life. Harm your delusions as much as possible and benefit others as much as possible. A very vast spiritual practice that everyone can follow. So now it's time for us to meditate, and we will engage in our preparatory prayer of liberating prayer, where we can accumulate a vast amount of positivity and purify negativity and receive powerful blessings if we sincerely engage in the meaning of the prayer. So try to contemplate this prayer as you hear it, and also try to expand your imagination and think, I could be like Buddha Shakyamuni. I can attain the same qualities that he has. I can gain the skill to help every single living being every day. So that's a wonderful way to contemplate this prayer, and then I'll guide a meditation. I think we're having a technical difficulty, so bear with us and just find a comfortable meditation posture. Huh, it stopped again. No, I'm not hearing anything. Pardon? Yeah, it was started. Sorry. Again, just bear with us. This is a karmic effect. Okay. So try to think, do I believe in the law of karma? That from beneficial actions comes happiness. And from harmful actions comes suffering. You can assess this in your own life by checking to see if you're actively trying to harm your delusions, to recognize them by watching your mind and noticing when your mind becomes unpeaceful, thinking, I have a delusion arising in my mind. I don't want it there because it will cause me suffering now and in the future. And we take that to heart to try to disappear the thought from our mind and to apply the opponent, such as becoming patient when we start to feel annoyed, wholeheartedly accepting whatever is occurring without wanting it to be some other way, mainly my way. And we add a dose of love and compassion if the object of our irritation is another person. If we find ourselves becoming jealous, we can practice rejoicing. If we start to crave something, we can think of the disadvantages of that particular thing, person, or situation. And we can yearn to abandon our delusions completely by attaining permanent liberation from suffering. If we believe in the law of karma, we will take to heart Buddha's advice to purify our mind and engage in purification practice every day, both formally and in the midst of our daily life. If we believe in the law of karma, we will actively keep our intentions beneficial towards living beings. Having a warm heart and feeling close to them and cherishing them as our objects of love and compassion. As a result, of practicing in this way, we're creating better and better conditions for ourselves in this life, and particularly for our future lives. So we're really taking care of ourselves, just as whoever we were in past lives, particularly this last life, created the causes for us to have this precious human life. We want to show our mental continuum the same kindness for our future lives. But all of this depends on our belief in karma. So create a strong wish in your heart to really contemplate the law of karma so that you can increase your understanding and heartfelt belief. And hold this for a few moments in the center of your attention so that you make it strong as possible. We can dedicate so that we can increase a heartfelt understanding of the law of karma so that we can protect ourselves in this life and life after life. And we dedicate so that we and every single living being can attain permanent liberation from suffering and lasting pure peace and happiness. I think increasing our understanding and belief in karma and acting upon this belief is the kindest thing we can do for ourselves in this life and for our future lives. It is such a precious teaching from Buddha and from our spiritual lineage holder that we have this opportunity to really understand the law of karma. You know, the more you have faith in karma, the more you'll see it operating in your life. And you'll begin to prove to yourself that everything is operating according to the law of karma. I have many stories in my life where I created the causes early on in my life, which came to fruition later in my life. And I think if you check your own experiences, you'll be able to find examples of it as well. So I want to thank you for coming to this class. We have a couple of announcements. We have a very special event, two very special events with guest teacher Cata Morton coming up. And I hope that you'll be able to attend both of these events. On November 18th, we're offering a special teaching at 7 p.m., which will be available for 2 days online, that he is giving out of kindness for other centers on the East Coast. He's our national spiritual director for the East Coast. And so he's helping centers by providing periodically a teaching for us to offer to you. So I hope that you all sign up for this teaching. And then on December 4th to 6th, we're holding the Mid-Atlantic Dharma Celebration, which occurs every year for all the centers in the Mid-Atlantic region. And Kadam Morton, who's our National Spiritual Director, is going to be giving beautiful empowerment of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of Compassion, and teachings related to Avalokiteshvara. So I'm hoping that everyone will sign up for this. It's probably our biggest event of the year, other than our center empowerments. But this is incredibly important because this is for the International Temples Fund. And I really hope that everyone will come out for the Mid-Atlantic Dharma celebration. So it starts Friday evening on December 4th, and then will occur on Saturday and Sunday. And you can find the details on our website. So thank you very much for coming. And as usual, we are making prayers for you, your family, and for all living beings for health and safety.